Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, where every single Tuesday, without fail, we pop up and we answer a couple of property questions for you. Now, two things need to happen in order for this to take place every week. Firstly, Rob and I need to remember to turn up and turn our microphones on and hit record. The second ingredient, though, very important, is that you get your questions in. So, here's how you do it.
Yeah, you can call in on 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. Or you can use your computer and go to propertyhub.net/ask and record your question that way. Whatever you prefer, super simple. And this week's going to be a wonderful show because we've got a wonderful caller because he's called Rob.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Rob from London. Firstly, thank you for all that you provide for us on the podcast as well as on Property Hub. We are relatively new to the UK and to property investing, and after securing 2 spots in London, which is where we have lived since arriving, we are starting our property journey up north. My question is twofold. After listening to Boris Johnson's speech in Manchester over the weekend, I can't help but get more excited at the growing potential in Manchester and Greater Manchester. But do you think, as Manchester has become such a hotspot, investors could oversaturate the market, or is the long-term potential there to stay? Secondly, as mentioned, we're relatively new to the UK and have little knowledge and experience up north. However, if we have identified opportunities in some of these hotspots and visited these properties, done our background checks and DD, and run the numbers, how familiar do you think we need to become with the area before making a final decision? Thanks kindly and look forward to your expert advice.
Well, don't worry, Rob. It might be a Rob thing, but we're excited as well. Manchester is an incredible place to invest. Greater Manchester and the city centre. There's loads of legs left in that market. But, like any city or any town, there are good options and not so good options. Just because an area is doing well doesn't mean everything is going to be a home run. There are areas that you don't want to invest in. There are properties that are overpriced, where developers or individuals are trying to take advantage. So, just because an area is doing well doesn't mean that any of the lessons we've talked about on all the Ask Rob and Robs we've done or all the property podcasts go out the window. In fact, you've got to get focused because making a great investment in a city on the up and up versus an average or poor investment could be the difference of tens of thousands of pounds after a few years. Some people will say, Manchester's kind of done now. But you have to remember, outside the property podcast, Manchester's only really been getting attention for the last 18 months, 2 years at a stretch. I appreciate if you've been a podcast listener, it feels like we've been talking about Manchester since we began. We haven't. But what we did do is talk about Manchester before it started moving and tipped it as the next place to invest, a bit like we're doing with Leeds and Liverpool now. Now, Manchester has started to move. It's started. It's nowhere near reaching maturity right now. But as I've said, you've just got to get it right with your research. Don't rush in. Spend your time. If you're not an expert, work with experts who know that market or network with people who operate in that market and build your knowledge up. But if you get it right, you'll do very well.
Exactly. Do you need to worry about Manchester being oversaturated or being at its peak already? No. Does that mean that every investment you make in Manchester would be a good one? Absolutely not. It sounds like you are doing your research and getting a bit more granular, and that's great. So as long as you're doing that, Rob, I think you'll be okay. You've said that you don't have much experience up that way. It wouldn't hurt to hop on a train and go and check it out for yourself. It'll only take you a couple of hours, as long as it's not raining or too hot or too cold or there are leaves on the line or anything like that. But either way, it won't take you too long. And it'll first of all allow you to get a better idea for yourself about some of the areas you've been looking at. But it'll also give you confidence. There's something going on there and you'll feel it when you're walking around. And I think that'll take it from a numbers-driven, hypothetical kind of investment case to something that you really buy into and will give you the confidence to move forward. So that's our first question tucked away. Let's have a listen to the next one. Here's Tim.
Yeah, hi Rob and Rob, it's Tim. I've been listening to your podcast now for a few months. I've got a couple of properties already. One's serviced accommodation, one is a standard buy-to-let. Just retired from work and I'm looking to move into property as a full-time income to make myself financially free, as they say. I'm getting lots of information on the stamp duty, the extra 3% stamp duty, and one of the training companies that I'm listening to webinars on keeps saying that you can avoid the 3% stamp duty if you're going to use the property as a serviced accommodation. Now, I can't really find an exact answer to that as to how to do that, so I'd be really grateful if you could answer this question. Thank you, Rob and Rob. Hope to hear my answer on the podcast. Thank you.
Tim, quick answer to this one. Unfortunately, probably not the one you want to hear, but you cannot avoid the extra 3% on stamp duty if you're going for a property that you'll use for serviced accommodation. Don't know where you picked that one up from, but it's not the case. Now, if you're buying a caravan and using it as holiday accommodation, then you don't have to pay the extra stamp duty because it's exempt. But otherwise, whether you're using it as a buy-to-let or an HMO or serviced accommodation or pretty much anything else, if it's a residential dwelling, then you will be paying stamp duty on it, including that 3% extra. There are lots of other advantages to furnished holiday lets because HMRC look at them as a business rather than an investment because they kind of are. They're more hands-on, there's more work involved. And because of that, there are several areas where they're taxed in a more favourable way than regular buy-to-let investments would be. So they are becoming more popular for that reason, and they can be a great investment. But unfortunately, a saving on stamp duty is not one of those advantages. So you'll have to budget in that extra 3% when you're running your numbers.
So that's us done. 2 more great questions, and hopefully you feel pretty good answers too. We'll be back with the podcast on Thursday, and we'll be back, of course, with Ask Rob and Rob next Tuesday. So until those wondrous events occur, take care, have fun, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.